Rain. Withered white petals are falling into the spring water when you make your way back down underground. Exhaustion is setting in when you kneel down and start to stack the explosives. This was supposed to be Des' last will, starting a fire to engulf the world. He saw endless black clouds and an eternal night of soot. He could sit by the fire with you and his kin, and you could talk and play dice, and time would never stop. There was a time when this was what you wanted, but that part of you is now gone. Then you helped Des Paz, and his glory was transformed into Umberlee's will. Using the same bombs, you could plunge the Underdark into 60 feet of water. It would be the vengeance that you always wanted. Entire drow cities flooded forever. In the cave, you consider these thoughts as your shaking hands unpack the bombs. You have to wonder if the aboleth knows what you are planning. You can hear its languid circles in the water. You can see Julienne furtively gathering falling petals as you study the roof of the central cave and consider where exactly to plant the charges. You realize that you could stand the charges here in the limestone galleries, surely flooding the Underdark, or you could instead place them back in the serpentine room and bring down the mountain. You wipe the sweat from your face as your mind races. You feel something on your shoulder and look to see Zanaya studying you down the long axis of her bloody muzzle. Your companions are overwhelmed with grief and anguish, and while they are occupied, you and Zanaya shove the charges into the serpentine room. The part of you that wanted to do Umberlee's will is gone from you too. You light the fuse with the same matches that you would have once used to light your censer. The sparks fly as the fuse begins to burn, and you breathe, cry, and run. Here in the end, it is Rain's will. You did not do it out of vengeance. You did it because no way needs a grave. Julianne Willistride, you find yourself once again as the mediator surrounded by great chaos. You are trying desperately to get one final sample, the orchid petals. They may be withered, but you will not let this knowledge be one more thing that is killed in this cave. Rain grabs your arm and you shove him away. He tells you that you have 10 minutes, and you can see your companions beginning to break into a run as the aboleth stirs in the deep, groaning as its great brain begins to suspect the beginnings of your treachery. It is Tilda Lochlauren that grabs your arm, wresting you away from the bottom of the cave in the aboleth's fury. Tilda's other arm is tugging along Kala, who is cursing and screaming in tongues. You can smell the sulfur of the burning fuse as Tilda takes you up and out. Somewhere up ahead, the others are running through the wet and winding cave. When you arrive at the mouth, you can see them up ahead in the meadow. Rain calls you that we have to go. They are heading north to the docks. He knows that you and Tilda have final business here. Tilda looks for her mother, and you look for your last notebooks. Willoughby studies you from the windowsill as you triage what is most important. Left open on your counter is Laird's case file and the tome. You take a fistful of the orchid petals and press them in the pages. You toss it in your bag, grab some basic clothes for Kala, and rush back outside. Tilda's there with her mother and the two remaining St. Cyrs, Rebecca and Yosan, who are in a crying embrace. Now, just to go north and meet back up with your party. As you rush across town, you pass by the tankard and feel the ground shudder beneath you. The old wood of the northern bridge cracks before sagging into the river. The waters rise, and the supports of the bridge are swept away into the surge of a sudden flood. Across the distance, you can see your former companions come to the same conclusion that you are. Fare thee well, but my feet must carry me away from you. They run north to the dock, and you run south to higher ground as the waters overwhelm the riverbanks. Water pioneers the ground at your feet, swirling around your ankles as you run away. Your left boot snares in mud, and you gasp as your pack flies open, scattering your books and research into the water. For a moment, you stare at the sketch of Laird from his file as it floats in the water, considering lunging to save it. But you find yourself letting it go as you turn and leave it behind. Tilda Loch-Lauren. You find yourself with your family. Your mom embraces you and your connection is beyond words. There is nothing to say yet. Ed's wife clutches your arm. Julianne has fetched clothes for her, and eventually she tries to ask questions and communicate. The dialect that she speaks is laborious to translate, but the task occupies your mind as you walk farther and farther south away from the rising floodwaters. You hope in your heart of hearts that your companions, your true companions, are safe on a barge. Your mom cannot help but listen to your little conversation with Kala. She feels around her robe and finds a folded broadsheet from her little publication. She takes the cap off of her pen with her teeth and starts writing in the margins. Before long, you are translating between Kala and your mom, who is scribing the answers to questions that she had never hoped to scry. What has she seen? Where was she when her bones were in the earth? Does she remember? Dusk comes quickly, and you find yourself with no provisions together in the wilderness of Cormyr. A few cantrips get a small fire going, and the smell reminds you of your birthday. Rebecca places herself farther away, and you walk from the fire to sit and join her and Yosan. He looks up at you, knowing that you may be the only one who knows the answer to his question. You tell him that she is with her father, and she did what was right. When you rejoin your mother, she is sitting by herself, using the firelight to scrabble out a first draft. She smiles up at you and hands you the creased broadsheet. At the top, next to her name, she has left a space for the co-author to write theirs. Cason of a Mater. For a long moment, it all seems very hopeless. And then you can feel it, hands on your collar and shoulder. Your companions are tugging at you, dragging you along. You are in a daze as you stumble upward past the crackling fuse. In the sunlight, once again, you see a familiar sight. Elven scouts, this time from Mithranor, no doubt with an army following behind. You run west, cutting through foliage, scrambling past a broken tree where you downed a griffin. Then north, to the fork in the road where you almost lost your life, up past the shabby workhouses. Rick tosses his cigarette in the river when he sees you scrambling up the dock. He doesn't know yet. You and Jucky share a glance when you silently agree not to make this the moment where he learns. From behind you there is a rumbling deep in the mountain. Something disturbs the water table and the river suddenly swells and rises. There's a single barge on the dock, and you leap onto the deck as the rising water strains the wood of the dock. Rick unlashes the moorings just in time as the river overwhelms its banks. The barge catches the current. The jolt awakening the dwarf, sleeping in a hammock at the helm. You glide past the town and then on past the springs as the ground beneath the riverbed quivers. Looking upriver, you can see the mountain begin slumping into the river. Slabs of white limestone, like layers of a cake, slide into the depths. Great old trees are uprooted and tossed into the water, confused and tumbling. The mountain groans and finally its back breaks. The peak cracks into crumbling halves. Seconds after you see it, the sound arrives. A crack like a cannon and a rumbling sound that seems to come from the entire horizon at once. Below you, the water level continues to rise as the stone barriers between the spring and the river are broken. The waters mix. The barge is pushed downstream, and from a distance you can see the devastation. Stones and rock tumble, forming a frothing rapid that expands across the landscape. Swallowing meadows and fields and a little town. Rick has a smile on his face, and you and him are thinking the same thing as you watch the river and the mountain become one. Ed would say that it ain't pretty, but it's beautiful. Jucky Sourstump. Here on the barge, there isn't much to do except wait. The momentum of the floodwaters propels the barge downriver, and the wind buffets your face as you sit at the bow of the barge. In a bit of irony, you realize that this whole thing will probably have the effect of making a brackish marsh where Evening Star once stood. This whole thing was about making everyone feel like this was their home, wasn't it? Your people thought it was their home. The humans thought it was theirs. Now it'll look like your hometown, a salty marsh. That thought makes the wind taste nice as the barge rounds a bend. Looking back toward your companions, you know that you are in this craft with some people that you trust. And for someone who sleeps with his crossbow in his hand, this does not come easily. And for the first time in a long time, you set your weapon down, nestling it between four barrels at the rear of the barge. When you walk back toward the bow, you are unarmed and you feel free. The barge approaches a crossing. The next bridge downriver that spans the Starwater. The barge is due to pass under it, and suddenly over the edge of the railing, you can see the silhouettes of a dozen Mithranorian scouts. They may have been looking for you, Jucky, but they would have expected a man with a crossbow in his hands. You are inseparable from it after all. And when they see you, there's no man with a giant crossbow, just you doffing your cap as the barge glides under the crossing, not the man they're looking for. If they're also looking for a sword, you would estimate it's under 100 feet of limestone and water. You reckon that not everyone is meant to find what they're looking for. Arsinoe St. Cyr. You find yourself mercifully aware. It is nice to be ensouled, to have an awareness beyond your flesh. Your consciousness flows back into you as you slowly awaken. You think that you must have been unconscious for a long time. Today feels like a sunny and cool winter day. You find that you cannot move yet, but you are in no rush to get started. It is simply nice to be alive. By the time you drift back into wanting to try moving again, you have a sense that the sun has risen and fallen many times. There is a fine dust of snow on you, but only your topmost layers feel the chill. Time passes. You feel very comfortable here, and you find yourself no longer minding or anticipating the passage of time. You feel restful, and you allow those feelings to guide you back to sleep. Soon enough, the sun is in your eyes. You feel a nudge from Shantea somewhere in your gullies and fields. You awaken but do not move. You stretch and grow. You feel warmed by the sun and steam rises from you in the morning. In the evening, the dew chills and the bats tickle. The waters come and go with the seasons. Rocks erode and wash away in your rivers. You sense a white unicorn drinking from a clear stream somewhere within you. And your glades smile, and all is right in the world. That's it.
That felt good.
I thought it was really pretty.
Thanks.
I like that.
And the melons.
When we get to water deep, are we going to find wanted posters for all of us hooligans?
She would report us. Also, to be clear, I think Waterdeep is pretty fucking far away, right?
Yeah, it is quite a distance.
In this case, I think Waterdeep is a substitute for like the general city of the Forgotten Realms that we've arrived in.
I really like the turn of Noe being like the protector spirit of the land of Evening Star.
Yeah, that was nice. It took me a minute to realize what was going on. I was like, wait, snow. Oh. Yeah, that was a nice
Snowy.
touch. Snowy.
Yes, I found that one very, very difficult to deliver. I'm sorry it was so fragmented.
It's okay.
Totally
It was
get it.
good. I thought it added to it.
Yeah. It felt additive. It felt like it kind of nestled and blanketed the ending.
I think cinematically, the Mithranorians on the bridge is probably my favorite part, though. It is the oh fuck, and then the oh okay.
I actually, the entire time, I wasn't even sure if the whole threat of the Mithranor army was real or not. I had no idea. I'm wondering, like, is this not crater, but this marsh formed by Evening Star? Is that going to make it hard for them to find Alcinerat and his people?
I sort of in a different imagining of Jucky's epilogue. Jucky is by himself on the eastern shore, and then there's like a massive marsh, and they arrive and find just him. So that was another way. So as I sort of imagined that it would make it impassable.
I'm just
Pretty cool.
picturing I'm picturing like Elsinora and his people like forward to a griffin, like everybody's just like hanging off of the griffin feet as they're trying to make it out, like the hobbits and the eagles. Hope the Mr. Noran's like swamps and mud.
I must just say thank you for running, man.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate it. Especially, I know. Go ahead.
I was just saying thank you for all the time you put into it.
Of course. Thank you, everybody, for continuing to play in this game and all the time that you've given me, and one more Saturday night. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I thought it was wonderful. I hope that this was a good end cap for the game.
I think so. Sorry for being a little late.
Not at all.
I'm just looking forward to knowing what my future work schedule is going to be so I can know when my like designated hangout night can be again.
I think we could go ahead.
I was just saying I'm mostly good on Saturdays right now. I have nothing definitive to put them in that slot, as it were. I'm still always tied up Fridays from now on and Mondays.
We could do, maybe if we're feeling froggy over the next couple weeks, we could do a little Saturday game night or something. Go back to stuff like that. Like we used to do Civ nights. We could do. I would be more than happy. Yeah, I used to really like playing Civ every week, and me and Joel used to have a game night. It's nice to have some kind of recurring thing to look forward to for games. So we can maybe, once everyone emotionally recovers a bit, in a couple weeks or something, I could organize something perhaps.
Yeah, this is like my main social time, so this would be nice to keep.
If they bring back Civ, I gotta dig out all the memes.
There's even a new Civ too. There's like, there is Civ 7. It exists. I don't know anybody who likes it or plays it, but it is there. I would download it and run the executable, I guess. So that is always there. Oh my god, D&D.
It was a long fucking camp. I think was that the longest one, or did we go slightly shorter than 3?
I think this was less time. It was a roughly equal number of sessions. I think we had 2 less sessions, but I think it was a little bit more time. I think it was a little bit more stretched out. Also, this campaign had way more. We had like a session, if you recall, we had a session -1, we had a session
that's true, yeah.
-0.5, and then session 0, and then session 0.5, and then session 1.
What is this, the Kingdom Hearts game?
Yeah, we played Chains of Memories.
It did feel a little tough to get things launched.
My favorite was session 358/2.
Okay.
Yeah, September through June is crazy.
Yeah, it was almost a year for like an episodic game. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And for not a single player to drop out, like, really shows the reliability of everyone in this group is very impressive.
Yeah, there's not something to fucking take for granted. Like how many campaigns are just like, and then somebody wasn't there suddenly. We'll just breeze past them. Or multiple, just because like job stuff or whatever. I was just thinking about like my favorite episode was very easy for me to decide on for the previous campaign. I do think the like cutting the boat in half is like so fucking cool. It sticks really like years later, I can still remember exactly what happened in that session perfectly, and I don't know if I can pick one from this campaign.
This campaign was a little bit more diffuse. I also, yes, the that scene, cutting the Spelljammer in half with Sunray, was highly instructive, and you can see the legacy of how well that landed in so many other things. You can see how much I love that too, because that was one of the inspirations for prepared spells, right? Saying like, if you've only got three spells to cast, I can really write a bunch of content for them or whatever. Yes, this campaign I think was a little bit more diffuse. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying I did actually like the prepared spells nonsense. I pretty actively did not want to engage in that when I first thought of the character. As far as like, I want to play a non-magical guy. And the more that I played them, I was like, it kind of doesn't make sense for my character to not be magical. More of it was like having two non-magical alchemists felt a little wacky. And I was, I think playing it out more that I was a wizard, or not wizard, but druid flavored in the sense of alchemy was easier than toe stepping on. Then there's also the vials and stuff that Julian. So I tried to play it up a little bit more fanciful.
But you're so good at that, right? This is like this benefits a lot, and that kind of flavoring I think comes very naturally to you. So when you're playing something that comes naturally to you, and it's gonna work, and it did. Ryan's such a good character. One of the things that I mentioned this to you when this was like session negative -0.5 activity. We were talking about, you had this idea for the quest for the off-white orchid. And I was like, oh my God, this is so poetic and cool. And this works so well with like what Sarah had already planned for Julianne. And there was like this natural, like, oh, the alchemists are really going to come together. And I think that if I had been a little bit more organized with some of those systems, it would have really unlocked something. But I didn't really know exactly the best way to implement some of this stuff. And as you know, it's easy for me to get dragged down in like the minutiae of items and stuff. So
there was like no items this campaign.
Yeah,
none items in fact.
I know. Well, in the last game there were like 400. I don't think that was added. I don't know if going from 400 to 10 or so is quite right, but maybe there's like a 50 number in the middle or something where it works better.
Yeah, but looking at the spreadsheets and looking at all the inventory and like all the flavor text for all the weapons and stuff. Oh my God, it was so fun.
I missed that.
There's like
I missed it and I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, there's like a part of my brain that I will never be able to fully suppress, where I feel like anytime I give you guys, like, it's like, oh, here's 8 pages of items or whatever, it feels very self-indulgent, and it's easy for it to not feel like, oh, is this actually like good D&D or good roleplay or whatever. It's hard to make it relevant. Go ahead.
It makes the pack rats happy.
It makes the pack rats happy. And we do have some rats.
But on the other hand, you know how easily I get distracted by little piles of floor goob in like 7 Days to Die, you know?
I mean, it's also like a good way for you to just add like flavor and background lore for the world that just can't be outright explained narratively. Because it's never going to come up, more than likely, but I don't know, finding like a random item with just a little bit of description to just, I don't know. That was really cool.
Bite-sized world building.
I think that's an excellent point.
D&D.
Yeah. That's really something I miss, is like you said, like the flavor text, kind of subtle world building that you're not sure where else to put it or something like that. Or like, Sarah, I feel like you're talking about like sort of like setting the tone, which is really hard to say, but it's easy to show.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hate myself for not knowing this, but in Sparrow, the name of the kid that Grint decapitated
Paul
eludes me. Paul, there it is. Yes. The flavor text on his severed head.
Oh yeah, it's so vicious. That's
exact. Yes,
that's
like
really
that,
good.
Yes, like that's the only way you can do that, really, right?
That's true. Yes, it's either that or you have like a omniscient narrator voice saying stuff or whatever. But yeah, I do like things like that, and Totally fair. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think there is definitely a give and take. I'll circle this around a real main point. 'Cause every campaign up to this point, I can point to an item. I'm a very feelies person because I have to. It's like the way that I've adapted to online D&D is because you don't get mannerisms in person. I try to describe them touching a thing or doing a thing with a thing. And each of my characters up to this point has had a thing that they've gotten in the campaign that they felt very personally attached to. Like Tyrion had the little statuette that was built for him, or the like black silk thing that I felt was very good. Then you have like Brenner's arm, or his the shields, or the little booklet that he carried around, and then you have like stuff from Lauren's campaign with the tea sets and all of these like different things. I think all of those are really beautiful, but what I think what I wanted to say here was thank you for always yes-anding my if I mays with really mundane object. Like I was really struggling immediately with my yes and of my own fuck up with Umberly, because I was like, how the fuck do I paint this character now? What do I do? And allowing me to do the little bell thing, or imagining a little chain, or what have you. I thought that was really good.
I find you very easy to improv with, and I have a hard time improving. I think my improv writing is by far my worst writing, and I have a very hard time improving things and feeling like, oh, that's the best I could do. And the times when I feel it is good, I'm often playing off of something you said that I find very dynamic and easy to engage with. Like the and to your point about mundanity and like small items turning into something special, like to my knowledge, when you first conceptualized Rain, the sensor was more of an accessory, and then it like, but it's easy to make it like character defining and like really, do a lot of like, you can picture someone richly when you have stuff like this.
I have pretty big satisfaction, I guess is the word, with all of my characters up to this point, and I just really liked Rain. That's not trying to toot my own horn. It's just like I felt like for a change, the differential between expectation and execution of character, I hit something I liked more than what I had foreseen for them. I mean, I don't know if I've openly mentioned it to everyone. The character was supposed to be a lot darker, a lot more, not so much a foil, but this whole driving force of like being an anxiety riddled, driven by Dez's machinations was supposed to be a lot more important to the character. And then episode 1, when I had recognized that it's like, fuck, I had written Rain to have been in this town for like 20 years plus, and watching Tilda and Noe grow up together, I was like, oh fuck, I have to care about them a lot. And that's gonna drive a fucking stake in in this entire thing. I just like that version of the character way more.
I concur.
And I definitely said it at the last time. I think everybody's characters are really fucking good this time around. I don't think there was a weak link.
I thought so too.
I definitely tried to double up on the effort. I didn't like my previous performance.
I think Julianne came much more naturally to you. I think that, and especially, I think you saw how much people reacted to Julianne being kind of biting, without being like catty, which I think is kind of hard to do. Like it's or like. Or like sometimes it's easy to have characters, and this was a, I'm trying to think of how to put this thematically. This was a problem in Sparrow, where we had characters who kind of like to kind of like just like jump in and say something, and I think a poorly implemented version of Julianne would look more like that, and instead you, I think, accurately portrayed somebody who feels driven to conflict and unafraid to back down and be like willing to argue or willing to say like you're wrong, which can in role playing spaces I think be really tough to do in a way that's like stomachable. And instead, I think you saw people rooting for you, which tells me that there was really good execution.
I could also, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just to like really thank the Julian character again. I could see a version of this campaign where we all played kids, and I think it would have been worse for it. I really like the fact that Julian was the adult of the party.
Yeah. To be honest, I think I would find it hard to play a kid. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you liked the character. It definitely came a lot more natural to me.
Something that I don't know how to put this, but I think it sort of just came to me. Well, these games for me are often about sort of emotional resonance and what character better to live in that space than Kaysen, right? That like intensely emotionally resonant space where everything really matters and all these little interpersonal dynamics are super important. The way you're perceived is very important. And these little personal dramas and the way that we are with each other define our lives. These are like recurring themes in my games. That these small personal conflicts and the choices that we make are really define us, and that's our story. And I think that space where character drama is the thing that defines a character that's the border town that Kaysen is from. Kaysen is from that town where. Go ahead.
So the really funny thing is, I had just, kind of made that up in like episode 1 or whatever because I couldn't think of a town name and I didn't want to like say the name of something that doesn't exist realistically in Faerun, so I just made something up. And it was almost at the very end of the game that I just happened to look at a map of Faerun and I'm like, huh, Border Forest is like 10 miles northeast of Evening Star. I don't remember what character said it, but he dead ass did go in a circle.
Just walking in like 10 feet of circle for years.
Yep.
Perfect metaphor for Kaysen's character.
Big true. I also want to play off the fact that Kaysen was definitely the group mediator for the rest of Evening Star, I feel. Like, it's really easy as a player to only really engage. Like, we have a super interpersonal, conflict-driven campaign style. Like, we'll sit down for fucking 3 hours and bicker between the players in the inn. And I feel like Kaysen being like, but yeah, that's chill and all, but also that kid down the street also really fucking matters was really important.
That's interesting feedback that you give because most of the campaign I actually felt very guilty and was like self-criticizing myself a lot because I felt like I engaged way too much with the NPCs and was too drawn towards them and was like, oh, I haven't been putting in enough effort to like engage with my own party members and bounce roleplay off each other and like develop our own characters through interactions. And like I pretty harshly criticized myself for that in the feedback, so it was interesting to hear the other perspective on that.
I think having a character that's gives that friction is necessary though, because it's really easy to we're all glued into our seats and then we have to get up and go deal with this problem because otherwise we're just not going to leave this fucking inn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It was good to have a character like Julianne for sure, and I like the writing in the epilogue that really just emphasized like this momentum of exiting because I think that is truly the only way that he would have made it out of that is if kind of not necessarily the choice was taken away from him, but if he was like physically pulled and had the reminder of like, hey, the sun is still turned on outside. We gotta go.
One of the alternate ways of realizing these, and this is something that like I was sketching out during the week, was like we have a little and it, like the focused maps work, right? So it's like, ooh, let's do more focused maps. I was going to do a focused map of one of the tunnels in the cave, and it's like, Rain's here and Julianne is here, you guys can have a conversation before the epilogue or whatever. But it would be something where in order to give you choice, it would have to be so many choices. It would be so much writing. And I started like sketching out a little bit, and I was like, "There's no way I'm going to pull this off. This is going to be a disaster."
I prefer the you're in like cutscene hand off the piece personally.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting
Is
me.
it-
It's not easy.
Yeah, it is. It is hard because it's like in an epilogue that's not interactive. It's like you do momentarily give away the agency of your character.
100%.
That's something I think comes with time over role playing. You play more campaigns, the more that you move on to the next character, the more it like emotionally you have to let them travel on in the world, because you're not gonna always play Kason or Rain or Julianne or Noe or fucking Jackie. And they move on in the world, and you play the next character, and then you're in their boots, and you get to spend a little bit of time with them. But I think having somebody else take the reins is, no pun intended, it's sort of relieving, right? Because it's like, I prefer the story that was told of Rain than the one that I would have willingly done.
I thought you were going to take that a very different direction and say like, well, at least someone else's hand was on the blade, kind of thing,
That too. That also feels very good. I'm sure it was extremely relieving to Dave to not have to personally stab all of our characters, but if that is not the thing that should have been done. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I do wish Dave had been able to be here, because I considered one of the central dyads and thus character conflicts was, of course, Tilda and Noe. And I also thought that they were very consistent characters that came online instantly, which is like, you know what I mean by online, with like, existing in the space and role playing and like finding their footing, which I think is extremely difficult. I think especially for me, in session one, which as you recall was very front loaded with crap. It was very relieving to me that there was some immediate no way and Tilda banter where I was like, this is gonna work. It's as long as the party can banter, things are gonna be okay. This is like a great acid test for your first session.
I also really love all of the various Tilda Kaysen interactions of Tilda being like, "Man, have some more respect for yourself. Stop being trash bags."
And I knew it was very difficult for Dave to play Tilda, but I think he did a fucking phenomenal job. I agree. Like, it was extremely believable that Noe and Tilda were best friends since they were a kid. And I don't think I could have played that variant of Rain in the context that they weren't, you know?
Yeah, I thought that was also the strongest part of the campaign in that regard. The interaction between them two, their whole young adult thing. Yeah.
Something that you are very good at as a role player, Jewel, is familiarity. The ability to be familiar with a character that perhaps your character has interacted with for 10 years or something in character, but you've never met in an actual scene, and stuff like that is very tough to glue together sometimes. And I thought that you did an amazing job, and it made me feel much stronger with some of my NPC performances, and especially some of my weaker NPC performances. I think you helped me glue together quite a bit. because
Super agree with it.
I didn't have a very like Yosan's a perfect example. I didn't really have a very good footing for them, and had a hard time finding an expressive character. It was something that would happen to me sometimes was there were a few characters in this game where like I could practice them like an hour before the session or whatever, and it's like, I have a voice for this character. And then during the session, as soon as I'm as soon as I'm in the weeds a little bit, it's like, wait, how do they sound? Like, how do I, like what sort of language do they use? And as soon as you're sort of dragged into that in the moment, I think it's really tough. And I definitely had that for some of the NPCs in this game.
I do super agree with that. Just your strength of familiarity, though. Something that really rings to mind is the dream sequence with Nothing Gold from the previous campaign, where you immediately had to play off of your like prior robbery friend.
What perfect? Yes, what an excellent example. Definitely, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of practice with this kind of improv, so I think the difficult part is when you're trying to refer to something that should be a shared experience, but you kind of like you haven't discussed that ahead of time, so you kind of have to lob it to the other person. Like, remember that time when we X? It always ends up being a little like you don't actually talk to people that way, but you kind of have to in order to convey that you're making up this information as you're describing this. Yeah.
It feels like a cheat code, like when you're trying to make something happen in a lucid dream and you just like call someone's phone number hoping they'll show up or something. Something like that.
Yes, this idea of evoking something into reality and referring to a shared experience that neither of you knows anything about. But in some ways, it's a way of saying, like, oh, I want us to have had this shared experience or something like that. What else?
Speaking of trying to find the right language for a character, I super fucking empathize with having to come into a campaign halfway through with a different character or a new character. I love you, little chaos gremlin. That was great. You did a fucking wonderful job with him. But I think Chucky just stuck out, like immediately solidified if I knew exactly who the character was. Because it's super easy to just jump in, fill somebody's boots, and then fall into the background. But like when Chucky did act, you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I fucking feel like he would.
Yes, whenever you did something as Chucky, I always felt like this is as in character as it could be.
Thank you. Sporgle was kind of built to not be that by design. I wanted to, so like, I believe I've played a cleric every campaign so far. I believe so. Even though
Yes.
Grant was mostly fighter, he was still,
Fighter cleric.
you know,
For
yes,
Tempest,
yeah.
yeah.
Right, and that's the thing is that I play characters that have very hard lines in the sand drawn for them, not very easy to be persuaded one way or the other, and I wanted Sporgle to be the exact opposite of that. So what does he want? Is he going to continue being a thieving little gremlin, or is he gonna, become one of the gang and be more on the level? That was completely up to like character interactions for the most part. I wanted him to be guidable in that regard, and that's what I tried to do with him. Although he got turned to dust before that could really come to fruition.
I mean, Julien did lose like 2 gold to Rain on bets because of
Yeah.
him.
I loved those little fucking bets for Goblin
Birthdays.
like Goblin lore, yeah.
Yeah, we just kept making up as we went. It's so funny.
I think that Sporgle, a minion type player character, where you're going in and saying like, I'm going to be very plastic and imprint off of X, Y, or Z, I think is very interesting, and that is the opposite of how you usually play. As you and
Yes.
me have talked about, I think there is a campaign where Sporgle is the perfect PC. And I definitely feel the draw of, dare I say, maybe lighthearted isn't the right way to put it, but something a little bit less in the realm of dark fiction, less grim, which I think Sporgle is highly primed for. Sporgle would excel in a game where there's a little bit of monkeying around.
For sure. I mean, he was kind of, because he's a goblin. He's pretty dark. Like I think of like how in combat in particular, there was a savagery there. Like when he
Definitely.
finished off
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the flaming fist captain or whatever. Yeah, like
For
those.
sure.
Yeah, he was walking that line best I could.
I think that combat in particular showed exactly who every character was.
I didn't
You have
expect
like no
that.
way.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying, you've like no way jumping into the front lines trying to save everybody, like actively putting herself. I think she went down, didn't she? So it's like perfect for that. You have Kaysen running off into the middle of something else for like something else is important. We got to go that way. You got like Julian trying to like mediate, but then immediately snap to like fuck that. Like there was too much fight backs, and then it's fighting words, and you have Sporgle up in the trees.
One of the little lines that like I brainstormed and like it ended up in a fic, but I never ended up actually using it out loud was like an only half joking, request to Ilmater to cleave him into multiple still movable pieces so that he could be in multiple places at once.
I remember that.
I don't remember what fic that ended up in. I think it was one of the later ones.
Totally see that.
What if you just want to be cleaved in half?
I know that feeling.
Mm-hmm. I gotta say though, I kind of hope you do continue with this area next summer because I'm really fucking curious to how things play out. Like I want to know like the 3 year later storyline now or whatever.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes. I love this idea of going of like, and I've tried this a few times and never quite nailed it. Where like you go back to an area from a previous game and it's interesting. And I think that there could be some interesting things here. Think of all the artifacts in the marsh. Wow, wow, what fun we could have.
I think you fucking nailed it for at least the previous players in this campaign, though. Where I remember both the Plant and I both were sitting there in the fucking dark, or in the background for Kaysen's like not so much dream sequence, but history sequence. Where we're like, oh fuck, that is the same one.
It is. Yes. Yeah, that's true. That is so true. Yes. The Kaysen dream sequence, me and Andrew made a new exterior but kept the same interior.
It was really interesting to see that and knowing things in hindsight because in hindsight it was a way to like tie in this new character into a storyline that's been building over several campaigns. And I remember when the dream sequence happened, you guys were like, "Oh, that's the map from blah 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 campaign." I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, "That's so weird. It doesn't feel like Mike would like lazily reuse a map. What's going on here?" And it wasn't until the like close to the end when Spanbauer came around, I'm like, oh god.
The interestingly enough as well, it wasn't even a flat reuse. We actually went back and because when the party goes to the Temple of Lathander, it's ruined. So we went back and fixed it up. Like, not only did we not reuse the map, we went back and fixed all the walls and all the tapestries and like removed all the damage and stuff like that. So it was a
Then we brought it down again.
we did. It's a, what do you call it? It's like not a repo job. What is that?
Restoration.
Restoration. Thank you.
On this episode of Faerunian Flippers.
We're gonna put a new paint job on that bitch, and we're gonna see what our budget takes us.
Oh, you need a new sun god.
I'm
Ain't gonna be cheap.
Sure isn't. If canonically the only way to do that was with Scalebreaker, it's in a fucking cave someplace.
In an aboleth's belly, quite possibly.
So wait, yeah, what did the sword go into the water? Did the aboleth eat it? Because there was like a lot going on at that moment, and I did miss that.
Noe, at last I was tracking it, Noe handed it to Tilda.
And then
got gored and thrown into the aboleth.
Rain
Yeah,
took it
that's
from
right.
Tilda.
Yeah. Oh shit. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so when Tilda goes into shock panic mode, Rain rips it out of her hand and pushes her out of the cave. So I feel like in the overlap there where the decision is made not to blow up the fucking Underdark, but to cut everything out, there's no reaching out for apotheosis. There's no let's become the acolyte of Umberlee. It's let's put this in a grave like we agreed to.
I am curious, was the Scalebreaker Sahandrian?
What do you think?
God fucking damn it.
What do you think?
I don't know, and neither did Jucky, and that's why. Well, I mean, that's not the only reason I didn't try to make a play for the sword. Being where I was in the paradigm of the group, I didn't think it was, or not the group, the narrative. Let's say,
yeah.
yes, yeah. I did. I was in the back of my head when as soon as Spanbauer died, I was thinking, God, Jucky should die for that sword. And then Jewel said, no way dies for the sword. And I was like, oh, so jealous.
I thought Yoros had Scalebreaker in the last campaign, though, or something similar, because that's what he stabbed Samantha with.
Did he take her sword and kill her with it?
I didn't think that he killed her with her sword. I thought that the thing that Euros goes off into the wilderness with is
That was
the sensor.
Well, yeah.
He has the super whip. He has the sensor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because what happens with the Scalebreaker is Brenner takes Samantha's sword and tells Spanbauer to go. So that's why I figured that was in where everything tied up there.
Ah, that's right. Okay.
Yoros is running around with a nuke.
Yoros is running around with a nuke, and he's a Hexblade, so it is bound to him.
Holy shit. Honestly, though, on the subject of whether or not I think it's a Hadrian, I don't know. I don't even know what I want it to be, honestly. Like, the idea of Alcenarat bringing his people there for nothing is kind of a fucking downer, honestly. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, me personally, I don't think he took them there for nothing. I think there's still hope in the marsh.
I think so too. I also like to think that of all narrative characters to handle assault marshaling, the Elminster Druid would be the guy that could like carve out a little bit of space for their people there, right? And I think one of the through lines that I think was trying to be played out for this one, you wanted to have a background narrative of humans and elves and the ownership of a land, right? And I feel like by the end of it, Rain had actually sided with the elves to some degree. Like, Alcenarat actually did convince him that it was just like, because Rain spent all of his time with people. He shortens his name. His name is Raindethal. Lauren has a big, long, stupid elven name too. But he cuts them short for humans. He's supposed to be like, this is his people. which I think was a very fun playoff of Kaysen's like, no, but I have no place or whatever. And in either case, the viewing this super militant, specifically Corellan related elven group, and then seeing them actually handle their work, he was impressed by them.
I could have done more there, but we'll work on it for next time.
I don't think you could have done more there, but I don't think that ended up being the narrative of the campaign. I don't think the players latched on to that enough for it to be the through line, right?
One of the
I wanted to know where it would go.
say that again, right?
I wanted to know where it would go. I carved a whole wood standing stone. I was invested.
I think there was investment, but I don't really know the right words to put in here. It would have felt weird if that were the finale.
Agreed. Yes, that I concur with. This was something I was going to say like a half hour ago that I totally forgot about. One of the different imaginings for the end of this campaign. Oh, this was when we were when Latro had talked about the sudden appearance of the armies from Myth Nor. A different way to imagine the end of this game is the army is here. We have to fight them, and you need to suddenly you find yourself calling upon Kareen, and suddenly you find yourself saying, "Laird, please throw some people to the Aboleth," and stuff like that. So that was a different way that I thought that I saw the end of the campaign going. It was like the elves show up, it is insurmountable. Do what are you willing to do to stave off this threat? And in the end, I did not think that this was necessarily that it wasn't necessarily going to be as engaging. I thought the personal dramas leading up to it were more important than the conflict itself. Like, do you really benefit from having 40 tokens on the map and like, no, there's so many, it's so scary, versus like, is that scarier, or is like someone's life being futile way more terrifying? And for me, it's the latter.
100% agree. I feel like that was definitely leading up to that throughout the campaign, because I remembered pretty distinctly Rain trying to convince everybody, like, if we gotta fight a fucking army, maybe bombs, good idea. I think had things played out differently with the intent of leaving the bombs at the altar that Laird had built up, that was what he intended to actually blow up at the end of the campaign. It was less the primordial thing, but like he felt this dark machine that was casting whatever nonsense magic. Like that was the problem. So I could definitely have seen like a how much are you willing to sacrifice sort of thing. At the end of when I went down to Dave's house to finish his campaign, this magnificent battle of like 50, like you were saying, 50 fucking entities is definitely cool, and the scale and scope of that is cool. Also, that took 6.5 hours.
Sounds fun.
It was in its own way, yeah, but it is exhausting to mete out a combat that's that fucking complicated.
A lot of the combats this game were ones I didn't anticipate. Like, for example, with Shrike, the way that I thought that whole thing was going to play out was, and here's what I thought was going to happen. I thought the party was going to lead her into the cavern. She finds the helmet and basically says, "What is this?" And I imagined a sort of Mexican standoff kind of thing where everyone's pointing crossbows at one another, but no one actually fires. No one really wants to fire. Instead, I think something I said was so threatening that the party universally agreed that I was suggesting the combat was the only way to resolve it. So I think
it was Sporgle that made the call, and I remember that felt like a very strong scene, and I remember I really liked that.
Yes, Sporgle did make the call, but it wasn't like there was really this big moment of like, oh my god, what are we doing? There was pretty instant buy-in of like, like across the table, that combat was heavily suggested, I think.
I didn't get that at all. I actually felt that combat was supernatural. Not supernatural like werewolves, but it felt
Very
it felt
natural. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and I think the campaign would have suffered without it. Like I said, I think that was a pretty definitive moment that every character felt cemented in who they were, because we were all, there's always the conflict of landing in the character's boots correctly, and that was by session like 6 or so, and I think that everybody was like, okay, this is when shit goes down, this is who the character is.
It definitely felt very cinematic because it's. I feel like I feel like I've seen so many scenes play out exactly like that. Things growing in tension, and then someone makes an overt threat of some kind, and the one spazzy person sets things off because they assume there's no recovery, and that's basically what happened.
It's kind of nothing gold last campaign.
I don't know.
Even because of like the execution scene.
I feel like, especially with the word spazzy, I could see you call Sporgle a little spazzy. I don't know if I'd call Nothing Gold spazzy.
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking more sporadic, not spazzy.
Okay.
They have Fey-like whims that no one else really seems to understand.
Big true. I think it is mandatory that I wouldn't say it's mandatory, but it's so healthy to have the Fey-like character.
Oh, for sure.
I think,
go ahead. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
That was basically it. Just like having interpersonal friction, and not everybody is like, let's go do the good thing, and then everybody goes and does the good thing. Having somebody to explicitly drag the leash in a different direction is super, super helpful.
Yes, characters who are outside of normal human frameworks is really powerful, I think. I definitely have this idea of campaigns where, everyone's a part of the Sealy Court or whatever, or it's something where it's like everybody's very different, and you're sort of, you're the Sporgo. You're from another plane trying to adjust to this place. You know what? Another scene that was really good that made me feel like this like changed my perceptions of things. Do you remember the lighthouse in Fall of Cormyr? Something about this really worked. This idea of we've traveled through a portal and now it's this strange and alien land, even though it's just it's just the countryside. Something about that sequence really worked, and it was very informative for me. And I think that this thing of like you're exploring something familiar is cool.
That's the one Zelda game, right? Fuck, for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, Link Between Worlds. Or not Link to the Past.
Link to the
Yes,
past, yeah.
yes, it's exactly the same kind of thing. Exactly that.
Or you get the Dark World in Final Fantasy V, or the bridging point in 6. I think that sort of like, oh fuck,
Yeah,
a huge is super impactful. Speaking of that, immediately made me think of my own character's name that I can't remember for some fucking reason, Tyrion, and trying to hunt out I think that the play of like making food really important through the campaigns felt cool in so far as that campaign felt a bit more like a survival game. And I know that this campaign is supposed to have a like survival background element that was very quickly dropped, and I think it went super smoothly without it. I don't think it was mandatory this time.
Yes,
I never really did. Go ahead.
I think what was interesting is that even though food wasn't important as a line item on an item sheet, it became like a vehicle for role playing and making connections with characters. Like I am remembering the scene of basically all of us like tripping over ourselves to make tea for the sad NPCs.
I think it'd be hard to have like a survival element like that in this campaign, simply because we're almost always within walking distance of a tavern throughout the
100%.
entire thing. So that would be really hard to work into there.
This is a very Dave point, but if you have these systems where it's like, it's like, okay, we need to eat. Yes, let's, as you're saying, let's just walk to the tavern. Oh, we're subtracting 3 gold or whatever. Let's subtract that out and let's move this stuff over here. Is this really additive, or would that time have been better spent just kvetching about the food or whatever, or talking about how, to Jules' point from earlier, you make something up about a previous menu or whatever, and then you can play off of that. I think that there's ways that we can use food that are not like my I'll use the correct word here, okay? My stupid upkeep sheet, because I think that I definitely felt as I was preparing some of the stuff, I was like, man, I regret ever bringing this up. This game would be much more lightweight if we just didn't even think about this,
I don't know. I feel like it worked for Sparrow because Sparrow was more in that vein,
Yes.
so to speak. It's more about a very grand journey, lots of distance traveled, and also I believe that survival elements like that also can help you establish roleplay moments as well.
For sure.
Like with I think Alan and Grint had a thing with the fishing, for example. That was a moment for them. So
You're,
I think there's quite a lot of value there.
you're so right. Your central point there that systems create moments is like really apt, and like, but I think you have to be really careful with that. And I have a tendency to add extraneous bespoke systems, and if you get the moments from it, great. But if your moments per second dips too low, you're just spending like 10 hours a week between sessions fiddling with all this bullshit.
I love that phrase, moments per second. I like that.
Something I think a lot when designing sequences or whatever is we can fill up 4 hours of D&D doing jack and shit, and have it be like really low impact. A great example is like super roly combat or whatever. So something I think about a lot is, okay, just because we're talking, just because someone's miking down, doesn't mean we have good moments. So I try to make good moments, and sometimes I succeed.
Or I'm sure to all of us that have played a lot of D&D, the inevitable shopping episode
Oh,
becomes
God.
less role playing and more looking at a chart, and you're like, this is my Saturday now. I love this. This could have been in the background.
Yeah. So something that was a piece of feedback from Sparrow. That's something I started doing. Is like, okay, let's end the session. Here's the documents. You could like look at it throughout the week or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah, that
I
was way
like
better.
do the shopping like in between. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I liked the
I
edit
think
lists a lot. I thought they were very additive myself. So
Which list, Joel?
like the item lists in Sparrow or even Arabelle Black when we were going up to stalls to see what everybody was selling. In part, especially in Arabelle Black, because each stall keeper had their own inventory, and that in and of itself said a lot about their character, but also I liked the items that you designed. And also in Arabelle Black, I was playing an artificer, so I had like another weird system around being able to copycat weapons. Sorry, Ari, I cut you off. What were you about to say?
oh, it's all good. I was just thinking that food is something that can be like really cumbersome. I think especially if it's a digital campaign, because I'm definitely guilty of being that person that will like, because I love my little Excel sheets and my lists and things, and other people do not want to spend their Saturday night on that because they're not insane. Um, and so I'm very guilty of adding extraneous systems. But one of the reasons why um, I feel like playing D&D in person is so different is I ran a previous campaign where like food was something where there would be like a little food related moment in every campaign, like or not every campaign, every session. And one thing that was really fun was to whatever the characters were eating, like I would prepare that for everyone for dinner. So it's like halfway through or before we would break and eat that. And one of the funnest things that we had that my mom helped me make was the players were out in like a dry riverbed, and they kept encountering like little half-eaten bits of animal and stuff because a chupacabra was in the area, and they found like the half-eaten lower body of a goat And my mom, out of Rice Krispies, bless her, she made Rice Krispies in the shape of mutton chops, and just like put,
That's super cool.
and she put like red frosting to make it look like blood. It was very fun.
I do want to bounce off of that. Immediately makes me think of you did such a fucking good job with just like the LARP aspect of this. I'll like Dave is usually the one that's like that'll bring something always to every session, like a
Or the
candle or a
LARP
little
aspect.
thing. Yeah. I think getting into costume is something that not a lot of modern D&D is about anymore. It never has been for me in my group, but it's always been little tiny bits. I think the ambiance of things, especially when you're in a digital format, trying to bring whatever you can to get there is super well.
It was very fun. It sparked joy. I feel like this campaign helped me discover a lot of things about myself. Like, I definitely discovered a lot of new hobbies. I mean, just from this campaign, I got more into leatherworking because the only time I'd done leatherworking before was to make a holster for my Bash the Stampede costume like 2 years ago for Halloween. So I got back into leatherworking. I got into wood carving for the first time. I got back into charcoal and pastels, which I had, like, those were my nemesis. Um, I got way better at acrylic painting. It's like I got back into so many hobbies from this, and it was really nice. And I'd been on a writing hiatus for a really long time, and then I wrote like 170 pages of bullshit. So it was just really nice to like at this point in my life where it's like I have this mind-numbing commute, and you know my days kind of drag on sometimes to have like these really nice little sparks of creativity. And I felt like also, you know, when you play in a campaign, it's like there's things you like, there's things you don't like, there's things that it's like, you know, that you might just kind of feel neutral about. And I feel like all of that put together gave me such a better idea of what I do like in stories and like what I crave. And it felt like it just solidified so much my taste in media. And, you know, after the last session, it's like, you know, this is hard, you know, feelings are kind of all over the place. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there thinking about it and just, you know, kind of overthinking and over reflecting. And I was like, well, now I know the things that I do look for in a campaign, and it just like was this explosion of writing thoughts. And it finally like broke down the writing block for trying to make my own D&D campaign again for the first time in ages.
That is super cool. I remember in one of the previous campaigns we'd been in, it got me back into doing pixel art out of nowhere. It's really remarkable how much like these sorts of campaigns can get you invested to want to do the extra step.
It's pretty impressive when something inspires you to the point of creation.
I was extremely impressed with all of your prop work, and you did so much to this game. I thought it was extremely additive, and anyone who has played these games with me before knows that like the number one quality that I think I look for in players is people who care. It's like the number one thing. If you care, we can figure out all the other details. You know, we can make scenes work, we can make a kit work, and none of it really matters. But if you care, we will glue it together. And I think when you had such an obvious dedication to the craft, it was very obvious that you cared, and I think everybody could feel that.
Someday your kid is going to be running around with my cardboard shield and sword.
Yes, that's very cute. That's a very
Or
cute
mace
sense.
small, whatever it is.
Something else
The King Crow?
go ahead. I don't think anybody heard you say it.
Oh, I said with the King Crow.
Yes, no one else is going to know what you're referencing, but Sarah got me for my son a plush. It's like a very very large little king crow. He's very iridescent. He's like purple and black. He's very handsome.
Aw.
He has a crown.
I know
Fuck yeah.
exactly what you're describing. That's
Mhm.
funny. Because he's on
Spreading
my
that-
wish list too.
Spreading that bird propaganda early.
Did the owl bear ever like did his face ever become unsquished?
It's still pretty squishy. He needs to be repaired. He has like he has like a big tear in him. They didn't close him up, so he's not usable.
Oh baby.
Before I inevitably forget and want to circle back to it, something I really do want to fucking thank this group for is I've played in a lot of campaigns. I've been doing this since I was a wee little child, and something I've recognized that I really fucking like about this group is that I don't have to be in the driver's seat the whole time. It is so fucking relieving to just know that if I don't say anything, something will happen. Somebody else will happily get in the seat and be like, "This is this character's scene here." The uncomfortability of like getting into a session and then nobody knowing where to go. I don't feel like that's the case with this group, and that's so fucking nice.
I too have been in some games like that where I think if you're the DM, you have to have like you will have to have some impetus days where you're the one pushing the plot or whatever. But if you're a player and you feel like you have to push the plot, it can be really, really fatigue inducing,
For sure.
especially if it's always you.
I also appreciate having just like a group of mature players. I think it also comes with having players that are a little older, but like I feel like almost every D&D group, especially if you're playing with people in their 20s or 30s or whatnot, always has to have like the one edge lord that's using D&D as a vehicle to work through some really weird shit that no one else needs to witness. And there was no weirdness in this game. I didn't feel like anything was like off the walls or didn't fit. It was just, like it was normal, and that's nice because that's not always or even often the case.
See, we've cut out the middleman. I'm the edgelord.
It's
I
true.
don't. I think the most edgy thing that happened was actually me. The bite down sequence. I wanted that to be more of a painting of like the character's supposed to be very flowery and upfront, very happy, and then I was like, I gotta show them that the character is a little fucked up.
Well, which thing are you talking about?
When we had the fight at the river, right? So like Sporkle shoots them, and the two characters are running away, and then Mike asks me like, "Hey, you have a
I know
quick action?" That I was
Okay,
like,
yes.
"It's murdering time."
It was this
Okay, yeah.
something you do sometimes that I'd like to think this is one of my player skills as well. For example, is sudden unexpected brutality. If you can really do this, it's good. If you do it all the time, it's bad. But if you like sparingly have this card up your sleeve, it's really powerful.
It is very fun. Oh, also, thank you for finally playing it a bit, Jules. Fucking Rain had offhand. I will occasionally throw out some nonsense background information to a character, and just like I loved the idea of this elf coming into town so long that they do care about certain people, but don't really have like strong memories of everyone. And this idea that there was this like he got soup there one time and it may not have even been in Evening Star, and then finally getting the soup after like 8 episodes of being like he's so fucking mad he just wants the soup, and finally Noe like just cooks up a cauldron. I thought that was super fucking cool. It was a very heartwarming moment to specifically me as the player. I also think almost every character dyad had at least one really solid scene between themselves this time around.
I agree. Even for dyads where I feel like it was complex, something that another like session one good feeling I had was there was like this. I've used this analogy before, okay, so I'm sorry. There was like a Guitar Hero amount of shuffling and moving scenes around for the ride into the town on the barge. This was a last second edition, by the way. This was a absolute last second edition that was meant to be used for something else. But we put it in there, and I did not think it would be very easy for out of character for Ari and Latro to run with this. This was not easy. This was not an easy intro. And it actually worked pretty well. It felt pretty smooth.
I think the pretend you're a statue thing was like the perfect lead in for me, especially because my character was meant to start off as like kind of unserious, you know, like, okay, yes, let me actually legitimately sit very still, you know, and as my character is pretending to be a statue and like, yes, let's actually attempt to convince Rick of this.
I too, yes, I think that was a banger. Yes, that was very good.
It's very cute.
As a sort of final thought, first I will just some boring road mapping. I'm probably going to run another campaign in the spring, is what I'm guessing. Maybe the summer. I have some life changes going on, so we'll see how that reflects my writing capacity. It is likely that the next campaign will be the infamous Drow campaign, which I think has a really good hook and is really cool. And I think the other campaign that I would run after that would be Good Night 2. So Good Night, but much improved, hopefully, with like just a second iteration of the same stuff. So that's my broad dry point. My point that is not dry at all is just thanking everybody again. This campaign was, I think, the more I look at it, I think it was quite the success. I think it went very, very well. I have very few large systemic notes for myself, and I think that overall we as a group really produced something pretty incredible. There was a ton of quality roleplay density throughout the game. People really fell into the characters, and I hope the conclusion was satisfying. So I am going to sign off and go get food, but it has been my absolute pleasure playing with you guys. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.